Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Ara-maic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Ara-maic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, welcome to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, which is Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Today is Memorial Day 109, 109 days. That's awesome. And, Michael, after your welcome and everything, we do have a question that came by email.
Awesome. Fabulous. Well, the mention of Memorial Day is a habit we're working to establish on planet Earth where individuals who are in the game of blaming others stop and take responsibility for whatever hostilities and fears they're experiencing, go inside themselves and forgive. Forgiveness not being about letting somebody else off the hook, but rather changing the internal dynamics. Our thesis is that this internal dynamic of projecting hostility and fear onto others is the root of all war. We're here to eradicate war. That's why we're honoring those who have gone through the insanity of war and memorializing Memorial Day. So we invite you to join us in that process. And, Jeanie, you've got a thought for us.
Yes, we have someone wrote in and asked a question by email, and they're writing from, I believe this might be Denmark. I'm not sure. The code on the end of his email is .de, so I'm not sure if that stands for Denmark or not. But anyway, he says, after doing some reality management sheets, it seems to me that forgiveness is not excusing the other person for what they did or what they still do, but it's releasing my expectation that they would have behaved differently. It seems like I would no longer be responsible for their behavior. It sounds like sanity to me. What do you think? And I wrote him back, but I would like for you to specifically address. I told him that you would talk more about. Hold on, I'm trying to read at the same time I'm talking. That there was a difference in expectations and goals, and definitely talk about the difference in forgiving and pardoning. But then also talk about being responsible and what responsibility really means. So if you'd address those three areas, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Well, for starters, I agree with you, sir. It is sanity. And what the world has taught us is insanity. When we're taught to let others off the hook for what's going on inside of us, we end up in a string of events, a string of why is this happening to me again events, that are absolutely unchangeable as long as we're trying to let somebody else off the hook for what's going on inside of us. So the first key becomes the willingness to take responsibility for what's happening inside of you. And, of course, responsibility doesn't mean I'm guilty, I'm at fault, I'm to blame for what's happening out there or in here. It simply means there's a part of me that's participating in everything that happens in my life. The pretense I'm not involved in my life leads to trouble. And so when I recognize my responsibility, that becomes the key and the tool for recapturing the hidden part of my mind. The forgiveness process goes a step deeper than letting go of expectations. goals are much more significant in how the mind functions than are our expectations. An expectation can be a goal, but a goal is not necessarily an expectation. So, goal is something I'm committed to, or something that I insist that someone else does for me. So, I might have an expectation that someone speaks to me in a certain way, but that may not be a goal, and when they speak to me differently, that I just look and go, oh well. But when I load a goal in my mind, when I have a specific commitment to a behavior, or I insist that somebody else be specifically committed to the behavior that I have a goal for them for, then I link to the parts of my mind and build my perception out of the denied and dissociated part of myself that's in need of healing. And so the canceling of those goals, which, if you're not familiar with the conversation we're having about forgiveness, in the Ara-maic language, the word forgive is shebag. It literally translates to cancel. It has to do with removing goals. And the reason why you want to remove a goal if you're in hostility with fear is because it is your goal that drives the hostility and fear and reduces intelligence. So when you forgive, the word forgive in Ara-maic is shebag. It literally translates to cancel. And when you cancel your goal, what happens is you unload the driver from your mind that keeps you stuck in the cycle of unconscious projection. And so, yes, it does lead to sanity. I'm in full agreement with you. And thank you for the comment. I'm glad that it's making sense and functioning for you. Does that address all the aspects of the question, Jeanie, or the comment? Are you on mute, sweetie? Hello, Jeanie. Well, I guess we've lost Jeanie for the moment. So I'm going to just move forward. Dr. Tim, are you with us?
Hi. Sorry, I lost internet connection for a minute. I had to do a refresh there. I don't know what's going on with the system. Tim is not on with us yet. David is on.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous, Michael. And you?
Awesome. Doing well. I've been editing that piece that I wrote last night, and I'll be sharing it with you. And maybe we'll share it with the whole audience. We'll see.
Okay. A couple of comments about what you were just referring to about goals and expectations, and an expectation doesn't necessarily have to be a goal. And my reality and projection of it is that there seems to be, and it's just my take of it, that an expectation that I think for myself that in viewing things and as a child, and this again is just me processing through, that in seeing certain behaviors and interpreting certain actions within event, something that's going on, that my mind as a child would then create goals based on what my mind projected was an expectation of what someone or something going on would satisfy a feeling of being approved of or accepted and so forth. So my take of that is that as an undeveloped mind, viewing it, it became that I set it as a goal, that expectation that if I did or behaved in a certain way, then it would create a feeling or an approval and acceptance of that. And so therefore that expectation was set as a goal. And then resonating files with expectations and goals that so many things are fired off there that it resonates within me, unconscious goals that I have set as a child, to then have that experience of an expectation. And so therefore, if it didn't happen, then those feelings were resonated in there. Am I making sense with that? I'm just wanting to get clear for myself.
Sort of. But the line of logic's a little difficult to follow for me.
Say that
certainly
again?
I say the line of logic of what you just said is a little difficult to follow.
Okay.
But certainly by looking at the expectations I have and letting go, I'm going to be more peaceful. By looking at the goals that I have and letting go of them, I'm going to be doing forgiveness work. And that's kind of the distinction that we want to make. It's that goal that really is the driver in the human mind that changes our behavior and leads us to the internal process of healing, as opposed to the external form or game of forgiveness that the world plays. And if someone's not familiar with the forgiveness process that we're talking about, we invite you to go to the website www.whyagain.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a link, about half a dozen links or so down. It says download worksheets. And so we invite you to download the first 4 links in that section of the website, and that will give you the whole conversation, including a couple of sample worksheets that were done on the radio show, an MP3 that you can download free, that will walk you through the whole internal process of forgiveness as opposed to the external process. And if you have a question about our conversation, our number is 646-200-4169. Any other thoughts, David?
Did you say something?
I was just wondering if you had any other thoughts on the topic.
No, it's great. My thought is it's great to have people from all over the world tapping into this vibration of healing and forgiveness and taking on new realities of what it means, and applying it in their life. When I hear of other people even like questioning in it, or the letter that you worked on last night, to me, I'm thinking, wow, it's great that there's some inquiries about it, that there's some questioning of it. For them, when I question myself, when I ask for feedback from other people on what it is that I'm saying and what I'm hearing, then it's reinforcing in me the shifts and the changes that are going on. Because if a person wasn't questioning it, well, then it's usually to be implied that, things are just the way that they are because that's the way that they are. And so it's great to hear people questioning it. When you talk about, when we get questions from callers and curious, and, well, this doesn't work, and, well, how does this work? Well, then that just strengthens the whole idea of making a shift. So I hope there's some more questions that are out there. It certainly supports me in getting clarity as well.
Cool. Jeanie, are there any other questions in the chat room or callers on the phone?
No, there's not.
Okay. Have we heard from Dr. Tim yet?
No, he is not out there on either one.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a thought. If we have no questions in that direction, then there's actually a new post that's going to be going on the website. You'll probably be able to catch up with it within the next day or so. It's something I'm still working on. But I have a thought of just reading through it. And it's a response to someone who had sent me a piece of writing about forgiveness that was totally focused in, letting other people off the hook. totally focused in, it's in essence, it's somebody else's fault. And whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through is never anybody else's fault. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through is a product of what's going on inside of you. And so looking into that, let me just share a couple of things from this email. So here's what someone writes. Called, I hereby forgive. Very hard to say you're sorry, even harder to mean it. It is not any easier to truly forgive. A painful abyss exists between the offender and the offended, the alienated world in which each side must deal alone with his or her own perception of an unfortunate encounter. Whoa! Their own perception of an unfortunate encounter. And, one of the things I'll often do in a workshop, and many of you probably see me do it, is I'll be up at the board and I'll write the letters BS. And, of course, there's a certain presumption for people of what that means. And I offer that those initials mean belief system. It usually gets a laugh from the audience, which is kind of fun. But then I point out a very important point. Notice the person who might be offended by those initials on the board would be offended by the meaning they held for the initials, not the ones I held. The initials BS mean belief system. That's all. So when you recognize that as a principle, when I can be offended, it's because I have an offensive reality in my mind. And this writing is about the whole idea of the Day of Atonement, and it's called I Hereby Forgive. I hereby forgive anyone who angered or annoyed me. Can you be angered or annoyed if you don't have anger or annoyance in you? I offer no. And then it goes on to say, or who sinned against me. Whether it is against my body, my property, my honor, or anything of mine. Whether they did so willingly, willfully, carelessly, or deliberately, or whether through speech or action. And may no one be punished on my account. So if you listen to the brain cells that come from that form of writing, you hear that you have a mind that's focused on punishment, although they're in denial of it. Shakespeare says, my words flap, my thoughts remain below. So when I'm in that mode of I don't want anyone to be punished, what's vibrating in brain cells is punishment. And when I say that someone else has angered me, I'm saying, I'm not responsible for my anger. That's all their fault. And that's the whole game of the world. And this is proposed as a bedtime prayer that we forgive those who've angered or annoyed me. I say don't ever forgive anybody who you think has angered or annoyed you. I offer that if you want to heal, you'll stop and go, I've been through this anger and annoyance 87 different times with 42 different people. I let all 42 of them off the hook. I forgave them, or at least that's what the world told me I was doing. But here my anger and annoyance is still with me. Excuse me. If you actually forgive, you will eradicate anger and annoyance from your mind, from your emotions, from your body, from your life. And when you do, everything's going to change. Keep letting others off the hook, and you're going to be in trouble because you're going to continuously repeat those old experiences. So it goes on to speak about, forgiving ourselves, letting ourselves off the hook, letting others off the hook, forgiveness dialogue. Anyway, there's quite a bit about, and it's all focused around how they did it to me. So I was inspired, and this is actually going to go on the homepage of our website, so you'll be able to tap into it when it's complete. And I'm addressing this person and writing back, and people that they've copied on it, with the thought, I'd like to offer a different perspective on forgiveness than the one you have below. With practice, and if you'd like a copy of this email, you're welcome to just drop a note to Jeanie, and she'll pass it on to me, and I'll send you a copy when I send it out. If practice, this ancient Ara-maic tool of internal forgiveness permanently transforms the world between our ears, the only one we actually perceive, and does it in the twinkling of an eye. We live in a culture of denial, blame, and projection. If I'm in pain and talk about them, I'm denying ownership of and involvement in my own life. By so doing, I live in the repeated pretense that someone else is the cause of my pain. If I live in that world, I'm in big trouble. When I actually forgive, human life is restored. Hold a newborn child and you know what human life is. Our culture of denial, blame, fear, hostility, projection, and false forgiveness has forced virtually everyone to give up their human lives, the active presence of love. It does this by teaching us the repeating pretense that my pain is everyone else's fault. When I talk about them when in pain, I'm denying ownership of and involvement in my own life. By so doing, I live in a total projection and give up my human life. When I live in the imagined world of non-involvement in my own life and blame others, or even myself, I continuously and unknowingly recreate my painful experiences again and again. When I tell myself or others my lie, that they are the cause of my pain, and I call that lie truth, I block the truth that all 87 times I've been through a particular painful reality. With all 42 different people, it was only me that was there every time. I only experience pain because it is in me, not because what another has done, ever. No one can ever, quote, make me feel, unquote, what is not inside of me. If it is inside of me and I refuse to own and forgive, and the true definition of the word there is to remove my pain, anyone can bring it up in me. Talking about them and letting them off the hook will not resolve or heal the contents of my mind, nor my genetics, and guarantees repeated experiences of the traditional good old family feeling. Stuck in the cultural pattern of blame, projection, separation, and pain, I will never be relieved of my self-inflicted pain. It is time for us to give up the infantile planetary belief that it, whatever it is somebody else's fault. When we do this, we reclaim our human lives and begin to actually live as love again. Again, hold the newborn child. You know what a human life is. The world teaches us to give up that human life. How long has the insanity of living as non-humans been going on? 2,000 years ago, a man named Halil, this guy who lived from 30 BC to 10 AD, said this: in a place where there are no humans, one must strive to be human. Very powerful thought. How long has this been going on? Remember that old song? How long has this been going on? Well, Halil says 2,000 years ago, human life was almost gone from the earth, and it was time for us to start to strive to be human. There is an ancient Ara-maic technology that reliably, if used consistently, restores life. It is called true forgiveness. It is applied not to letting others off the hook, but to removing my internal multi-generational pain, the lives of the fathers that are being replicated inside of me. To let another off the hook for what's going on inside of me guarantees that my painful reality will rear its ugly head again and again, and seeming forgiveness of another will be deemed necessary ad nauseum, but the pattern will remain. The need to do this false form of forgiveness will be repeated throughout one's lifetime. This will cause the generational habit of alternately blaming and forgiving others, separation and or war-making, a dynamic that will be passed on to future generations, because through false external forgiveness, the internal cause of my pain is never addressed and removed. True forgiveness must take place to change these ancient traditions. The pretense that my internal dynamics change through false forgiveness keeps me in my own unique family and cultural deserts, stuck in my story. And what an old story it is. The faces, characters, the centuries will change. the abuse and my story remain the same. What have I denied and hidden away in myself that is only removed when I address it directly at its source, which is always within? When I put what is internal to my mind into my brain's image of someone else, I'm locked out of the only place resolution can possibly occur. And it doesn't matter whether that's, a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, an employer, a child, a parent. It can be anybody. When I put what's internal to my mind, and how can I tell if I'm putting something that's internal to my mind into my brain's image of them? I feel some sort of pain, and I look at the image in my mind, and I think it's all their fault. That's called codependence, by the way. So when I do this, I'm locked out of the only place resolution can possibly occur, that hidden place deeper inside myself, my own dissociated or unconscious mind. Healing what is within me can only be affected by me through an internal process. Denial equals dissociation and projection. False forgiveness simply reinforces the inability to access and change the inner root of my pain. The inner root, and in Ara-maic, the word sin is an archery term that means off the mark. The inner root, or my quote-unquote sin, is the cause of all disease. Listen to the cry of your generation. Anything unlike, everything unlike love is off the mark. All that has been denied in me is projected literally into my brain's image of others. The unscrupulous are those who simply do not understand, teach me to believe the falsehood that my forgiveness of them, and of course forgiveness is in quotes, will address and remove what I'm feeling inside of me and heal me. As a result, I am trapped in my own lovelessness. My internal dynamics, the only thing that can ever make me feel, cannot be addressed nor removed by any other process than delving deeply within and removing them from the inside out. It's all done with smoke and mirrors, and the Ara-maic process of internal forgiveness is exactly about shattering the mirror by accepting responsibility, the ability to respond rather than react out of old pain. Most wander in the desert of family and cultural patterns of traumatic experiences and blame for 40 years or so before it occurs to them to question their systemic patterns of projection and the use of the world's parody of forgiveness. External forgiveness is a false form that guarantees repeated experiences. Ever notice that when the stress is up and the chips are down, you do or have to fight doing exactly what was done to you that you hated the most? And, of course, if you want a deeper insight into that, you can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? You can go to the right side of the page and download this 4 links on forgiveness. It will show you exactly what the internal process is. So having been taught to forgive others or ourselves, that is, again, the word forgive in quotes, the false form of forgiveness. It's actually a Hellenized form of forgiveness. We've been taught an imitation form of forgiveness, and a Trojan horse has been delivered to our inner minds. It is a fraud that locks us into our generational pain. It is imperative that we stop forgiving, quote-unquote forgiving, ourselves and others, and implement for the first time in many centuries the true original Ara-maic form of forgiveness. For me to remove from the desert, and that's also known as the unconscious or the dissociated state, to move from the desert into the promised land, which is known as conscious creation, requires the removal of old generations, that is, causes, from my mind and from my genetics. The opening of my dissociated mind and the removal of the source of my multi-generational trauma is accomplished through true forgiveness, not by pardoning or letting others off the hook. By the way, there's a link on the website for a video called The Ghost in Your Genes, and it will explain how these things become multi-generational. Karl Marx said, the way to destroy a culture is to change the meaning of its words. The wisdom of the words so changed is lost until their original meaning is restored to us. The ancient Ara-maic wisdom keepers taught nothing that resembles today's Hellenized form of forgiveness, which is merely pardoning, and that has corrupted most of the world and perpetuated mass insanity. And you could read that mass insanity as lovelessness, the lack of human life. Only that which uncovers and exposes the root of and truly collapses projection and blame exposes the dissociated, replicate mind of the generations and creates real internal healing, such as the Ara-maic tool of true forgiveness taught by the ancient ones. This magnificent process has been lost or maybe stolen, and is the reason humanity is degenerating into its current chaos. As a species, without a technology to rid ourselves of blame, projection, fear, and hostility, those dynamics based in our family dynamics and cultural patterns, one which cracks the dissociated mind and removes the painful content, the sins, again, that word, that's an Ara-maic archery term for off the mark, what the ancient teachings taught us was the sins of the fathers, we function more like animals than men. Without true forgiveness, one wanders in the desert all their lives, finding person after person to blame and war against, or perhaps forgive, as they pretend they have nothing to do with what's happening in them. Again, Job gave us an awesome lesson. That which I feared and, of course, denied most has come upon me. Again, if you ask someone to describe the essence of the newborn, they will tell you in an instant about human life. It is the awesome presence of love. The above dynamics, for the lack of true forgiveness, have all but eradicated human life from the earth. Rabbi Hillel said it, once again, in a place where there are no humans, one must strive to be human. He also says, what is hateful to thee, do not do to thy fellow man. This is the whole law. The rest is but commentary. And then he says, go and study. He gives another interesting quote. And what he says is, he saw a skull floating on the surface of the water. And he said to it, because you drowned others, they drowned you. And those that drowned you will eventually be drowned. Rabbi Yeshua, 1 BC until 33 AD, says, you must forgive from your heart, that is your dissociated mind, the wrongs that you have projected on your brother. If you cannot conceive of the truth of these words and want to live in the state of denial, which is the home to most on the planet, and avoid the truth of your life, I invite you to sincerely ask yourself the question, if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? Or as an alternative, the next time you're blaming or perhaps even forgiving someone else, honestly ask yourself the question, how does this look like the traditions of my race, my family, my culture, and my life? There is an MP3 on the website. If you go to www.whyagain.com, click on Download Worksheets, the third link is an awesome MP3 of exactly how the ancient internal Ara-maic process of forgiveness works. I would love to have your feedback on this article. It's something we're going to be posting on the website, as I said. If you email Jeanie and you'd like a copy of it, she will make sure that you get on my email list for this particular piece. And if you have any thoughts or questions, answers, ideas, I would love to hear your voice. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Jeanie, do we have any callers or questions in the chat room, thoughts in the chat room?
No, it's really quiet. Any of you callers who are on the switchboard, if you want to speak, please press 1, and that lets me know that you actually want to be put into queue to talk with Michael. Otherwise, you're just out there listening, and that's okay. But I know yesterday we had some people who maybe wanted to make some comments, but they didn't press 1, so I thought they were just out there listening. And since you told people to email me if they want to comment or contact you about this article that you just read, my email address is Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain, WHYAGAIN.com. And I've typed that out in the chat room, so if you're out in the chat room, it's Jeanie at whyagain.com, and you can email me there. And we do have a hand up, and I believe this must be somebody from Oregon. Julie, is this you?
No.
Area code 541.
Well, welcome. Who are we talking to?
Hi. This is Beautiful One from Ashland.
Hey there, young lady.
Hi.
How are you?
I met you. I'm getting there. I
It
met
is a
you
work,
with
isn't it?
What?
I say it is a work, isn't it?
Well, maybe we could make it a game and not work.
There you go. Well, actually, you can go on the website and you can play the Drag-On game, which is the forgiveness process. There's actually a game on our website you can try out. Sure. So where did we meet?
With Dale back east.
Right.
So it was a few years ago. My question is, if somebody, and I know a number of people like this who have been looking for help, are taking antidepressants or other drugs, or medicating, say, with alcohol, how would this process work for them? And do you have any suggestions? That's my question.
Yes. In traditional treatment circles, you don't work with people that are actively practicing drug or alcohol abuse. I work with active practicing drug and alcohol abusers all the time. The key is, of course, number one, are they straight and sober when they're in front of me? If they are, I'm happy to work with them. And if you give them the tool of forgiveness, the Ara-maic technology, and that's the worksite is on the website. Website is on the worksite. Oh, brother. Anyway, my brain has been so into this article all morning, I'm having trouble drawing out of it. But anyway, if you give them the tool of forgiveness, they will, and they actually start to use it. Drunk or sober doesn't matter. They'll begin to delete the root of their pain. When they delete the root of their pain, the reason for their addiction, the reason for their depression will tend to start to disappear. I've seen it over and over and over again. People who are alcoholics who didn't even have to effort stopping drinking. It just became natural as they started to forgive. Because alcohol, my take is that addiction is about two things. And, of course, it's not just alcohol. Most of the world is addicted. If you go into a so-called food store, it's almost impossible to buy food that isn't laced with drugs. So the whole drugging of the culture. So in our codependence work, we offer a definition of addiction, and that is the compulsive use of any person, circumstance, substance, or activity to avoid feeling what's real for us and communicating about it, to avoid our guidance system. That's half of it, and then the other half is to anesthetize our pain. When you give people the tools which to start to remove the pain starts to disappear, and the drugs, the alcohol disappear with it. That would be my take on that question.
Good. So you need someone to talk to?
Say it again.
You said to avoid feeling what's real for us and to talk about it or express it.
To express it?
Do we need someone to talk
about it? Well, not necessarily talk about, but avoid our guidance. So if my non-being mind, my denied and dissociated mind has some sort of traumatic thing that I'm about to do, my guidance system is always telling me, hey, there's another option. But if I've decided to do this insane thing, this loveless thing, and the being that I am, the love that I am is saying do something else, that creates tension and a stress. With alcohol, that tension and stress goes away. So when I use a drug to avoid following my guidance or communicating about what's real for me, and or I use that substance to anesthetize my pain. When I do that compulsively, that's how I define addiction. Forgiveness gets rid of addiction.
So there are many cultures that's happened with, like the Native Americans and others, European natives, where they were given the punishment, blame model, and then given white sugar, alcohol, etc., to cover it up.
Yep. That's the way to keep people in their trauma. And what we're looking to do with these tools is to reacquaint people with the original definition of forgiveness. As I said in this article, we've been given a Trojan horse. When they Hellenize forgiveness, and Hellenizing simply means when they took the culture it came from and turned it into Greek thought. Then the original Ara-maic idea of forgiveness disappeared, and it was replaced with the Greek idea of, well, I'll just let you off the hook, and then I'm forgiven.
Maybe because the Greeks use their minds and not their hearts.
Well, it is definitely a game to be overcome. You know, one of the tongue-in-cheek lines I'll often deliver in my workshops is, in order to heal, you've got to be out of your mind.
Now, another addiction could be even hurting other people or causing pain to oneself.
Absolutely.
Not just food or drugs. And that includes prescription drugs, does it?
Yes, any person, circumstance, substance, or activity that I compulsively do to avoid my guidance, to avoid communicating about what's real for me, and or to anesthetize my pain is an addiction. So it can be anything. Sex, lots of people use sex as an addiction. Television, computers, computer games for kids are becoming an addiction. God, I live in this hateful world. I go to school and I'm bullied. I get home and I'm bullied. I'm beat up. I'm verbally, emotionally, perhaps physically abused. I watch my parents drugging themselves and screaming and raging and fighting each other. I think I'll just go lose my head in my little game thing. And it's an addiction. Rage is the most common addiction I would offer on planet Earth. Rage is an internally produced drug that is used to anesthetize against our pain and suppress our guidance. And it's one of the most difficult addictions to get rid of because, of course, the supplier is internal and it's free. You can't just say, okay, I'm not going to the liquor store again. But it's an addiction as sure as liquor or any other drug is, and it's one that I usually suggest people who are hostility addicts go into a 12-step program and start to work through their addiction.
Because the brain becomes addicted to that, right?
That's it. Internally produced chemicals that act as an anesthetic.
So when you're detoxing from that, how do you keep the chemicals from taking over again? Well,
one of the tongue-in-cheek lines I'll deliver in my intensives is all of the above. Every tool that I talk about, if you go back through the last, we started doing this show about, 7 or 8 months ago now. So every day, 5 days a week, there are archives. If you go back through those archives, if you go back through, we have 16 different workshops on DVD. We have 5 different workshops on CD. If you were to listen to every hour of all of that, the only thing I'll ever talk about is how to do exactly what you just asked. So it's every tool we teach, everything we talk about is how to accomplish that process.
And how did...
Which, by the way, go ahead.
How did Rabbi Yeshua offer to do it?
Well, if you're not familiar with this, I'm the director of Foundation that's translating a copy of the oldest known New Testament in its ancient Ara-maic language into English. And the whole forgiveness process that we're teaching is purely from what he taught. It's exactly how to collapse the game of projection, crack the dissociated mind, come back into direct relationship with what we've been drugging ourselves against and hiding, in many cases, for generations, and how to get out of those generational patterns. That's why that question I asked toward the end of the article, when somebody's in the blame game or they're playing the game of, well, I'll forgive you for what's going on inside of me, ask yourself the question, how does this look like the traditions of my race, my family, my culture, and my life? And once I recognize that this looks just like the traditions, it looks just like the way it's always worked, then I have the opportunity to go inside myself and start to remove those traditions that are insane and are destructive of human life.
So what you just said sounds a lot to me like blackmail, too.
Oh, how's that? I don't have any brain cells for what you just said. Tell me about it.
Well, it just occurred to me that if you say you're doing this to somebody else, you're blaming them for something, and you say, well, if you do this, I'll let you off the hook. That's blackmail.
Yes, that's the Greek, the Hellenized form of forgiveness. The Ara-maic form of forgiveness that we're working with is, you just did something that brought pain up inside of me. I think I'll dig out my forgiveness worksheet, my reality management worksheet, go inside myself and change the root of my pain. That's forgiveness. That's what we're teaching. That's the core of what we're talking about.
So you could use this in gangs and other forms of thuggery.
We've used it in every venue you can imagine. Every venue you can imagine. We had a young man a few years ago that came to Heartland at the beckoning of his kind of adopted aunt. She contacted us. This young man was very intellectual, genius IQ. He was on 2 or 3 different forms of psychotropic drugs. He was addicted to pot. He had become so antisocial that he was living in her basement, kind of an adopted aunt, friend of the family kind of aunt, and was totally and completely alienated from his family. He was so antisocial that it was an unfinished basement. He would not even come out into the house to use the toilet. He was defecating in a can in the basement. He was 15 years of age. He came to a 9-day intensive. He was bright enough that he got the tools in the forgiveness process and understood it and started to use it. She contacted me about 6 years later to say that he had just been appointed to the honor guard for the President of the United States. That's the kind of change we see. Consistently and regularly, that's the kind of change we see.
So I guess you don't advocate any kind of SSRIs?
Well, it's not a game I play. It's not a world I live in or have anything to do with. I don't advise people one way or the other. Everybody's going to do what everybody's got to do. But what I know is that when we deny and dissociate from something, and chemicals can help us to dissociate, then we can say, well, now I feel better because I don't see any of this at all in my world now. Well, look at what's happening inside of you. It's still going on. You're just totally, completely unaware of it, unconscious of it, dissociated from it. And so the forgiveness process is how I recapture those parts of my mind and I remove them from my structure rather than use some form of chemical denial in order to stay out of touch with what's going on inside of me. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to deal with my life. Now, does that mean that you don't ever use a drug? No, I think in the right hands for crisis management, a drug can be an awesome gift. But if they are a substitute for one being responsible for their lives and doing their work, they're in trouble. That would be my take.
Mm-hmm. For people who don't have a computer, do you have a phone number in order to get some of the materials you've been talking about?
Sure. You mean like order some things? Is that what you're
Correct.
talking about? You want to order something? Yes, actually. If you look on the website, or are you in the chat room?
No.
No. Okay. If you want to take my number down, you're welcome to call me, and I can place an order over the computer, or instruct you how to place an order if you want. So my cell phone number is 954-205-4996. And of course, I give that in confidence, knowing that anyone who's listening to the show would use it respectfully. The time when we're available for one-on-one conversations, such as the one we're having right now, is during the radio show, 5 days a week from 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time, and I guess it's 11 till noon your time out there. So we'd ask people to use that respectfully. But yes, you're welcome to call me when the show's over, and if you'd like, I'll place an order for you online.
Okay. Are you going to be back?
As we speak.
Pardon? Are you going to be back in the Pacific Northwest soon?
I'm sure we will, but we don't have any plan at this point. No, our next tour is heading to Florida. We have an intensive that we start actually tomorrow. We're starting a 9-day intuitive development intensive here at Heartland, and then in late October, early November, we'll be starting a tour in Florida. So I'm sure we will be back out that way again, but we don't have any immediate plans. We don't have any schedule at this point. As a schedule, basically what we do each year is we look at where do we have the most requests to take our tour, and that's where we'll go, is where we can touch the most people and share the tools. And when we do that, we pay our own expenses, and the workshops are free. So if you've got somebody out there that would like to invite us, that would certainly accelerate the possibility of us being out there sooner rather than later.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Cool.
Or play with
I
it.
appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
When you said that you met me with Gail who?
Dale Hoffman?
Oh, Dale. Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah, so you know Dale. Cool. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Dale
how's he doing?
does some awesome work. He's doing well. I talked to him about 3 weeks ago. He's just setting himself up a video studio and invited us to come do some more video work. So we may be doing that before too long. And he's in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well,
all right. I appreciate your call.
Have a beautiful day.
Hey, you too. Blessings.
Thank you.
Well, Michael, right along those lines of how much the work can change your life, how about if I read that one letter that I'm getting ready to put out on the website?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Me too.
Okay, this is from a gentleman who he wrote this letter to his psychiatrist, and he had read the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, and started doing the work, and said, then here's a letter that he wrote to his psychiatrist, and he copied us on it. It says, Dear Dr. LD, and we've just abbreviated initials to protect their privacy. Enclosed is a book whose tools I have been using and studying for 2 months. If I had access to this information 35 years ago, it would have enabled me to have shifted and healed my life then. At age 60, I did not believe it was possible for me to change my basic human condition. As you know, from 35 years of treatment, 2 to 4 times a week, I have been chronically depressed all of my life. My soul has been tortured with the pain of fear, self-hate, self-pity, anger, rage, jealousy, isolation, hopelessness, and failure to achieve the love and community of others and myself that I have always craved. The understanding that my thoughts cause my feelings and that I can change my thoughts is the most important discovery that I have ever made, and it is the most rewarding and delightful journey that I ever could imagine. Because of the way this book is written and organized, I have been able to see what I could not see before. I now have the tools, know how they work, and have a coherent, organized strategy for implementing them. I am finally able to do my work, the work of cleaning out and healing piece by piece the thoughts that caused my 60 years of experiences here on earth, the thoughts which caused by my 60 years of experiences here on earth, which have imprisoned me and darkened my mind. The subtle shift in awareness of myself, the world around me, the knowledge of who I am and what I am made of, the human condition, religion, and science, gives me joy in my heart. I hope you take the time to read this book. Who more than I, a patient of yours for 35 years, with whom you have invested your time and have patiently and lovingly tried to help heal, could better give this endorsement to you. Best regards and love, J.S. from Los Angeles, California.
And, of course, that book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, you can download from our website free. You can also buy a copy, which, if you'd like to support this work, we would appreciate you buying a copy. But you can also download it free in several languages. And, of course, we have, as I said earlier, 16 different DVDs that are, one of them is 4 hours, but otherwise are each 2 hours of live workshops. Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Healing through relationships, communication, did you hear what I think I said? Empowered to Heal, Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment, Getting the Stress You Need, Introduction to MindShifters, and Still Play Breathing. There's a whole list of workshops that are available. And, of course, purchasing those on our website is one of the ways to support us. Or if you'd like to call me after the show, if you don't have computer access, then we would be delighted to place that order for you on the website. There are lots of videos, audios. There's so much gold on the website. You'll spend time on it. You can spend weeks never come through every corner of it. You can download the last 7 or 8 months of archives of the radio show. Some awesome interactions. In particular, the most inspiring piece of the whole puzzle is the MP3, the third link under the link that says download worksheets on www.whyagain.com. The third link is an awesome show with a woman who was just outrageously courageous and made some major, major shifts and really demonstrates the process of forgiveness very powerfully. So we'd be delighted for you to participate in any and all of that. If you are ready to really crank your life up to the next level, we're going to start. Of course, this is getting pretty short notice. We're going to start a 9-day intuitive development intensive tomorrow. And in that intensive, we'll cover, of course, the forgiveness process. Why it's just happening to me again. We'll do mind shifters and still playing breathing. And intuitive development, which is the ability to access areas of our minds that have perhaps been shut down for eons. And the world purposely shuts those areas down. And so in this intensive, we're going to work on supporting you in reopening those areas of your mind. And there's a quote from Albert Einstein that I love to read. And here's what he said. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Imagination is more important than knowledge. The only real valuable thing is intuition. So we know where Albert went. He said his work was 90% intuition, 10% intellect. So if you're ready to open that intuition on a new level, and intuition is the ability to access information directly from the world rather than coming through the body's mind. And that's our intuitive development process. And it's a very practically oriented workshop. There'll be a lot of exercises and a lot of work with doing the process of forgiveness. So, Jeanie, any other questions or thoughts in the chat room? We're down to about 3 minutes or so, 2.5 minutes.
And we're down to 2 minutes. No, there's no conversation in the chat room, and everybody on the phone is just sitting listening. So the only other thing I just happened to run across the other day, and it's at least a little enlightening coming around. This is actually from the Mayo Clinic, and they had an article on forgiveness. And this professor wrote that forgiveness is a commitment to a process of change. A way to begin is by recognizing the value of forgiveness and its importance in your life at a given time. Reflect on the facts of the situation, how you've reacted, how this combination has affected your life, your health, and your well-being. When you're ready, then actively choose to forgive. Move away from your role as victim and release the control and power the offending person and situation may have had in your life. As you let go of grudges, you no longer define your life by how you've been hurt. You may even find compassion and understanding. And then they have listed benefits for doing forgiveness, and they have healthier relationships, greater spiritual well-being, greater psychological well-being, less stress, less hostility, lower blood pressure, fewer symptoms of depression, anxiety, and chronic pain, lower risk of substance abuse. So they still don't have quite the level of forgiveness, but they're getting there, and that sounds really awesome.
That's awesome. Honey, if you would, send me a copy of that, and I'd like to contact whoever wrote that. So, and to everyone who's on the show, bring a stranger with you tomorrow and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Ara-maic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.